Hueco Cranks has probably the finest collection of boulder problems in America, certainly, but maybe the world. Problem for problem, there's no better place than Hueco, and it is the best wintering area, I'm sure, in the world, simply because no other place will give you the power foundation that you can get here. Just everything is brutal. It's something that if your elbows hold together and the tendons of your fingers hold together, then you'll leave Hueco stronger than you've ever been. The best boulder, possibly at Hueco Cranks, and maybe the best boulder in America, is called the mushroom boulder, since it looks from the desert out here like a huge mushroom laying on the plains, and all of its sides are overhanging. And this makes for at least 25 beautiful, individual, high-quality, desperate routes. The longest route is the Hueco Cranks on the south face on the mushroom, and it's an interesting problem in that it's very powerful, yet there are 4 cruxes. And if you're going to approach it as a boulder problem without a rope, you must maintain concentration over the entire range, since one of the 512 cruxes comes at the top. And it's about 45 feet high with a landing of sloping rock. And if you fail either with your concentration or power or stamina, or simply fall off any of the footholds, from the halfway point on, you're going to be injured. And it's something that it takes a long time for mental preparation for this problem, in that you know that you cannot be conservative in your climbing style. If you go slowly and take your time and try to make sure on some of the holds, you're actually in more danger. You must commit to things and you must take chances. Otherwise, your odds of falling become higher. So you must lunge when it's time to lunge, and you must stand on small footholds and go on and off of them quickly. And there's a point at about 35 feet where you catch a very sloping hold, and it's something that you're not actually able to chalk very much beforehand. So you catch the hold, and you catch the best part with your right hand, but you must have your left hand in the same place, and you must do more or less of a piano move, where you must bring your hand off as the other hand comes on, and then you adjust it a little bit, and you must lunge off of it. And that part is probably the scariest, since it's when you're top roping, many people fall right there. So you take your time at that point, and you add as much power as needed, and you make sure that your lunge is accurate. When it's hot and you are up there, the holds are a little less positive than you'd want, and it's actually a very dangerous solo. Yet it's exhilarating also, because you must concentrate well at the very end. If you don't, there's no down climbing. You must make the end. Part of the benefits of becoming powerful is then believing that you're powerful. It's often that will carry you through a point where if you didn't think you were strong, you may more or less fail for that belief. So if you think you're strong, you are strong. And bouldering at Hueco gives you that belief better than any place else we've ever been. This is probably the very best bouldering area in the United States. And you can sort of divide the problems into high boulder problems and normal boulder problems. One of the best high boulder problems is a route called Wyoming Cowgirls, which is a 512 that named after an old girlfriend of mine. And it's very committing also, in that there's one crux that you would be very badly injured from if you fell. And there's, again, it's very sustained. So if you haven't got a lot of stamina, then you're going to run into problems at the very end. And again, there's no way to down climb. You must be able to do the last moves. So it's let's call it very entertaining. you're always wondering, you're laying awake at night, wondering if you can do it easily enough, especially if that crux is at the top, so that you will escape dying. And it's an interesting thing in that it's worth a lot to make a solo like that. It's worth far more than just leading it. When Legends Die is the best route at Hueco Tanks, and maybe the best of its grade in America. It's a 513B that has everything we look for in a route. There's a brutal power move on it that's more or less a boulder problem, which is a technical crux and the power crux. But then it never lets up. It's overhanging for the entire 80 feet of the route. And there are section after section of 512 after that, and you get tireder and tireder, and at the very end, there's a section, I like to call it the salsa section, because there's a part where if you fall, people have taken 50-foot falls above the last bolt. And you're very tired, and there's one last 512 section a long ways out from the last bolt. And so it demands a lot of concentration, not just power in your forearms and fingers. So that adds another interesting aspect to the climb, and it's my vote as to the best 513 in America. I look at new routes as an author looks at a book. In your lifetime, you read many books, but you only get to write a few great ones. And I see doing a new route in that light, in that it is something that you've given to the world. And it's something that you always sort of consider your own. Calling all the heroes at 513D is the hardest route at Hueco Tanks. It's got a very strenuous start, which is rated 512C. And it's actually blows your fingers and your biceps out both. And this leads up to a very hard single boulder problem move and much sustained climbing afterwards. And if you can make it through the boulder problem after coming from the bottom, it's still not for sure that you'll make it to the top, since the climbing is still so strenuous there. I have things that if they let us bolt will be 514B, and there's some chance even harder. And it's a matter of we'll become strong enough to do them. We will have the commitment and the time and the weather. If we are allowed to bolt, then we'll have tremendous climbs for the Europeans and the rest of the Americans to come back to next year. Down in the sun-blasted wastelands of the Great Southwest, down where the Rio Grande River trickles down to a mud-choked irrigation ditch, sits the sprawling barrios of Juarez and its northern suburb, El Paso. It's called El Paso because if you're not a climber, you just pass on through. On the edge of this desolation sits a brilliant labyrinth of overhanging syenite called Hueco Tanks, home of America's finest bouldering area.
Climbing out of Calgary, Canada, Scott Milton! Yay! One of the advantages of Hueco is you can do hard moves just directly off the ground. So in fact, you're doing cruxes of routes, but you're not actually on the route. You're just 2 feet off the ground. If you're in trouble, if the move's hard, you just step down.
We're just on the edge of the golden age here in Hueco. The problems that have been done up to this point are just warm-ups for what are going to be done next year and the year after. The climbing here is futuristic.
any better than us. Well, okay, they are better than us. But it's something that we're not that far off of. We can see them, we can watch their technique and their belief in themselves and understand what is possible and rise to that level.
Hueco is a real magic place where I am more impressed. More than the climbing, I am impressed about the creativity of the nature. It's pretty wild. Great.